Hello class, and welcome to how to create, run, and edit a simple macro in Microsoft Excel. My name is Bill Berquist and I'll be your instructor for this lesson. By the time you finish this video, you'll know how to create, run, and edit a simple macro using Microsoft Excel. What is a macro? A macro is a series of instructions that execute with just one action. Macros are used to automate repetitive tasks. And lastly, macros are created using the Visual Basic for Applications programming language. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay everybody, here we are at the Excel application window. Let's go ahead and build a basic macro that'll put together a shell of a worksheet for a quarterly report. Now the tool we primarily use to create a macro is the macro recorder, where we actually record our screen and all the actions that we're doing, and then when we run the macro, all those actions will execute in just one shot, one mouse click. Okay, so I'm going to click over here. I'm already in cell A1. To get your macro going, I'm going to click on View and then Macros and then Record Macro. Remember, I'm on the View tab on the ribbon, Macros, Record Macro. Let's give our macro a name. We'll call it Quarterly Report. I don't think I'm allowed any spaces in a macro name, so I always just use the underscore. You can assign your macro to a keyboard shortcut. I don't recommend that because most keyboard shortcuts are already being used by something else. Okay. Where do I want to store the macro? If you want to use a macro across multiple workbooks, you might want to store it in what's called the Personal Macro Workbook. That's a file that automatically opens and hides itself whenever you launch Excel. That way, whenever you want to use your macro, no matter what workbook you're in, you can go ahead and do that. But we're just going to put it in this workbook, and we'll give it a simple description so people know what the macro does. This macro builds a quarterly report template. There we go. I'll hit OK. All right, and here we go. Now the macro is recording. The macro recorder is going. How do I know that? Well, if I look down here in the status bar by ready, I have my stop button down here. Okay, I've got my stop button down here. So I am currently recording. So I'm in cell A1 already, and I'm going to type in Pacific Computer Warehouse, and then enter. I'll just type in quarterly report, then enter a couple times, put myself down in A5. Now I'll type in revenue, sales, services, and consulting. Hit enter a couple of times, type in the word total. Now I'll go up here and type in January. And I'll go back up here. I'm going to drag the fill handle. That'll fill it across. I'll type in total. And now I have my basic worksheet done. Obviously, we're not going to have any numbers in here. That's the whole basis for a template. Just the shell of the worksheet. I don't want to have all the numbers in there too. But I do want to have formulas. So once I do type the numbers in, all the totals will automatically calculate. So I'm going to click up here on Home. Remember, everything I'm doing right now is being recorded. I'm going to hit Auto Sum and drag across and hit enter. I'll copy it down 2 cells. I'll go over here and do auto sum. Copy down 3 cells. Copy across. Now I've got all my formulas. Okay, I've got all my formulas. Now the worksheet's basically done, the shell's basically done, but it doesn't look very good. Let's go ahead and format it a little bit. I'm going to widen column A to about 16 characters. There we go. I'm going to widen columns B through E. Let's see, format, column width, maybe 12 characters. There we go, looks good. Okay, I'm going to heighten my rows 20 points. format row height 20. Okay, I'm going to highlight my title up here. I'll use merge and center. Remember, my record is going, so everything I'm doing is being recorded. I'll make it 20 points. Bold. Do a light blue background. Dark blue font color. Do the same thing down here. Merge and center. Bold. I'll make that 18 point. Okay, looks good. I'll copy it down here. See, light blue, dark blue, bold, center. I'm going to left align revenue. Okay, I'll indent my 3 row headings a little bit. Increase indent twice. Okay, maybe make it italics. Alright, now the tricky part is getting my numbers formatted. Okay, right now there's no formatting applied to all these cells right here. Okay, no formatting at all. So I want to format this to currency or accounting style. Remember, you got 2 formats that give you dollar signs, accounting and currency. Accounting places the dollar sign to the far left of the cell, and currency places the dollar sign up against the number itself. So I'll make it accounting style. And it also gives it 2 decimals. I already know that from using Excel before, so even though I don't see the numbers, I know that there are 2 decimal places there. I'm going to decrease my decimal twice, and that'll fix that. Even though I don't see anything, it still happened. Over here, we'll do comma style, and decrease decimal twice. And then for my total, I'll do accounting style and decrease decimal twice, and we're looking good. I'll put a border right here, a bottom border, and over here for my total, I'll do a top and double bottom border, and I'll bold it, and I'll also bold my totals over here. Kind of makes them stand out, so when people looking at the worksheet, they probably know that there's probably formulas down here and not to mess with them. Okay, so my basic worksheet is done. Okay, my basic worksheet is complete. Everything I've done has been recorded. Okay, let's go ahead and stop the recorder now. There's a couple ways you can stop it. I could go back to the View tab on the ribbon and then Macro Stop Recording, or I can just click the button down here and stop recording. Okay, so now my macro is complete. Alright, let's see if this macro works. I'm going to go to a new worksheet. Okay, I'm in a new worksheet. I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to Macros, View Macros, and there's my quarterly report macro. I'll click Run, and there we go. Okay, very, very cool. All right, very, very cool. So now all I have to do is go over here, type in my numbers. Okay, 10,000, 15,000, and we're looking good. All my totals are in there. Worksheet looks good. Okay, worksheet looks good. Now, if I want to edit it, let's say I want to do some things to my macro. Well, the first thing I possibly see an error. Let me get to a new worksheet here. What if my cursor's down here when I run the macro? I'm going to go to Macro, View Macros, and run it. And look at my title. It's way down here. The macro started at the cursor location. Okay? Yeah, that's no good. I don't want that. Okay? I don't want that. I guess I could run it again. Let's see what happens. Alright, it fixed it a little bit, but I still got this mess down here. Okay, I don't like that. So we're going to have to edit this macro. Basically, when the macro starts, we'll make a few changes. When the macro starts, I want to make sure that the cursor is up in cell A1. Okay, up in cell A1. I also want to change our title to Atlantic Computer Warehouse. Okay. I want to change services to repairs. All right. And I also want to change January, so it's the next quarter, April, May, and June. Okay. All right. So if anybody wants to use it, they're always going to get January, February, March, but maybe they want April, May, and June. Okay. So we're going to make a few changes to our macro here. All right. Also, the last thing, I want to make sure that when the macro stops, that this is the cell that's selected. That way the data entry person's ready to rock and roll. They just start typing in numbers. Okay? All right, so here we go. I'm going to go to View Macros. View Macros. I'm going to click Edit. This brings up the Visual Basic for Applications Editor. Okay? All the code is stored in what's called a module. Don't worry about so much that for right now. But take a look. It looks pretty complicated. Don't let it intimidate you. If you actually read it line by line, it's not that bad. Okay? It's not that bad. All right, look at the very, very top. All right, look at the very top. You can sort of see all your labels that were plugged in. Notice they're enclosed in quotation marks, so I want to make sure I don't lose the quotation marks. Any comments that aren't part of the macro itself are green and are preceded with an apostrophe. Okay? Those are comments. You can put anything you want in there. Okay? Like I can edit it right here. I'll put quarterly report. There we go. All right. I want to have Atlantic Computer Warehouse instead. Okay. Revenue, sales, service, consulting. I want to type in repairs instead of services. Okay, consulting in total. The autofill starts with January, but I want to change it to April. That way it'll go April, May, June. All right. And you can scroll down and look at your lines. Look at it line by line, and you'll see that it's really not that bad. All right. I'll make the column width 14. That's for column A. Okay, columns B through E are 12 characters wide. The row height's 20. I'll make that 18. Making a few changes here. Okay. Look at this, range D9 select. That means I clicked a cell. I clicked cell D9. I'm going to copy that. And you'll see why here in a second. Remember, when the macro runs, the macro starts wherever the cell cursor is sitting. So I'm going to make sure that the first cell that's selected is cell A1. Okay, so I'm going to click right up here and hit enter, and then up arrow, and then paste. Control V for paste, and I'm going to change that to A1. There. Okay, don't worry that it's out of alignment. Okay. All right, so when the macro runs, the first thing it's going to do is click on cell A1. Then everything else is going to execute. All right, looks pretty good. Is there anything else I want to do here? Keep scrolling. All right, it's a lot of code in there. Most of it you don't have to worry about. And range E7 select. That's the last thing the macro does. I'm trying to think where that empty cell is where you start typing in data. I think it's B6. I'll type in B6 right here. Uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter. All right, looks good. Let me close this. I'll get to a new worksheet, and I'm going to put the cursor down here. And macros, view macros, and run that macro, and look at that. Okay, the column width changed a little bit. Okay, I've got April, May, and June now instead of January, February, and March. I've got Atlantic Computer Warehouse instead of Pacific, and this says repairs instead of services, and that macro ends with the cursor right there ready for data entry. Okay, ready for data entry. All right, very cool. So that macro is complete. Now let's snazz it up a little bit. Here's one thing a lot of people don't realize is you can customize the ribbon. Let's make our own ribbon tab up here. I'm going to right click anywhere on the ribbon, doesn't matter where, and I'm going to do customize the ribbon. And I'm going to create a new tab. And there it is, new tab. I'm going to right click on it and go to rename. And I'm going to type in Bill's Favorites. There we go. I'm going to make a new group and rename that reports. And we can give it a little icon if you want. There we go. Now I want to add the macro command to my ribbon. I'll hit OK right here. And there we go. Okay, I've got a new ribbon now called Bill's Favorites. There's nothing there, okay, but I have a new ribbon tab. Let's add my macro to this ribbon. I'm going to right click my ribbon and go to customize the ribbon. And I'll click on reports for my group. I'm going to go up here to macros and quarterly report and then click add. And then I can right click it and go to rename, give it a more friendly name. Insert quarterly report. Give it a cute icon here. Let's see. That's like an update. I'll just pick that one. And I'll hit OK. And there it is. I can insert a new sheet. Doesn't matter where I am. Insert quarterly report. And there we go. Start typing in my numbers. And my macro is complete. So we created a basic macro, we edited, or we ran our macro, we edited our macro. We ran it a couple more times to make sure it works properly. Okay. Another kind of a cool way, I think if you do Alt F11 on the keyboard. Yeah, Alt F11 is a keyboard shortcut to get you into your Visual Basic editor. Okay, into your Visual Basic editor. All right, so we're looking good. Okay, we're looking good. Our macro's all set. We customized the ribbon. We added a group called reports, and you could add all kinds of buttons on here, all kinds of your favorite Excel commands. Okay, including additional macros. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop here. We created, ran, edited our macro. We created a new tab on the ribbon and a new group in the ribbon, a new button on the ribbon, and then we attached that macro to that button in the group on the ribbon. Okay? All right, so we'll stop here, and I will see you again for the next video.